minute or two. All right, in the essence of time, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, welcome everybody. My name is Jason Price, Channel Sales Manager here at PTI, and welcome to today's webinar, Modernizing Tenant Access StorID. We're excited to officially launch our latest tenant-facing app, mobile app, StorID. Let me introduce today's speakers. First, we have Sasha Keppel and Logan Bennett. Both are our product management team and have been instrumental in the creation and launch of StorID. I know that they're excited to share the new features and the rollout schedule, as well as what to expect for StorID. Before we get started, just a little housekeeping for today's webinar. All the attendees are on mute, so if you need to ask a question, there is a Q&A button at the top. Please log your questions there. Myself or moderator will make sure that we answer the questions at today's end of today's meeting. In typical fashion, we'll try to keep today's webinar under or around 30 minutes. So let's look at today's agenda. First, we'll talk about StorID. What is StorID? Go back one more slide, please, Liv. Go back to the one slide, please. There we go. Okay. We'll talk about StorID. What is StorID? What are the key benefits, key features? And we'll talk about the transition from EasyCode. EasyCode, if you don't know, is our current mobile tenant-facing app. We'll talk about what to expect, not only from a tenant, but from an operator's perspective. And then we'll talk about the enrollment of StorID, whether you are EasyCode client today, or if you're brand new to StorID. We'll then close with some use cases and examples. We'll talk about support, that's support from the tenant perspective as well as the operators, and then we'll end it with a Q&A session. So with that, Sasha, I'll turn it over to you and let you talk about what you and your team have been working on for StorID.
Thanks, Jason. So our newest tenant-facing app, StorID, is essentially, you could say, a modern solution that is used to provide tenants a secure and personalized access experience. So it keeps in mind using mobile credentials instead of your bulky physical key fobs to access these secure areas. And it integrates with StorLogic's Cloud, ProEdge, and AP1, to name a few of our security products. And it also showcases highly encrypted Bluetooth to ensure those access connections, which we'll delve into in the future slides. But for now, let's move on to why we created StorID. So we created StorID for two simple reasons in mind. One, we wanted to improve the backend architecture and development by doing away with the outdated code that we once had. And two, we wanted to enhance the look and feel of the app. So overall, the goal here is we wanted to meet the growing demand for smarter access. So with StorID, it's not just about unlocking a door, it's about creating a positive experience for both tenants and operators. So with that being said, let's get into some of the key features and benefits that a tenant would experience first. So zooming into tenants first, let's say we have a tenant that accepted a job in a new city and needed a storage unit immediately. The property management system first pushes an enrollment link to the tenant after they purchase a unit, or the operator can choose to send an enrollment link in SLC, whichever they want. And then the tenant would go through the enrollment process and boom, the app shows the tenant the assigned unit and the tenant could instantly move in, which is the benefit. Or maybe a tenant runs a side business and needs to send employees out to a unit to pick up and ship merchandise. So we now have key sharing as a feature in StorID. So the tenant doesn't need to hand out a physical key fob or remember to reset their access code after their employee used it. They can create a key share within StorID and get notified when the person they shared the key with enters and exits the property. Or maybe a highly security conscious tenant rents a unit to store their more sentimental items. These tenants want to know things like who accessed their unit, or they want to get alerts for failed access attempts, or see timestamped entries. That gives the power to the tenant to no longer worry. They have all that information they need at their fingertips. And then alongside having an access log, StorID provides real-time notifications. So as the market leans towards millennials and Gen Z, they value instantness and staying informed as quickly as possible. Plus, they're always on their phones. So with StorID's push notifications, there's no waiting around until something happens on the property. More specifically, with our smart latch, the Pro Edge, tenants get notifications every time someone tampers with their latch, or even opens their latch, or forgets to even close their latch. So that provides a sense of active monitoring. So let's take a look at how StorID creates value from the operator perspective. I'll hand it over to Logan.
Thank you, Sasha. As Sasha mentioned, StorID enables tenants to have a seamless web-to-unit rental process for that instant move-in, but that also benefits operators. It allows for an automated rental process from the moment the tenant rents their unit online until they get access to the gate and even their Smart Latch Pro Edge, for example. This can improve lead conversion and take some of the heavy lifting off of the operator's plate. In addition, as you'd expect, StorID is compatible with all PTI unit security products, including door alarms, Pro Edge, etc. And this can lower setup and maintenance costs for future installations, including existing installations. Additionally, operators have the ability to configure their access points in StorLogic's cloud to display differently on the StorID app to enhance security, change the Bluetooth sensitivity, for example, etc. In addition, within StorID and StorLogic's cloud, operators have the ability to customize the mobile app for their customers, to add a logo, change the color scheme, to really create a consistent brand for their customers. We'll now jump into a comparison of EasyCode and StorID on the next slide here. So as you can see, we kind of have a list of a few features and how they compare for EasyCode and StorID. For example, EasyCode was built for our legacy keypads. However, StorID was built with our newest products in mind, our AP1 and our Pro Edge. But StorID does still work for our VP and our Apex. And kind of pushing the AP1 side of things, our AP1 keypad, of course, has that Bluetooth capability, which is also built into StorID. Of course, we used to use a cellular network-based access control for those legacy keypads, VP and Apex, and we did do some testing with Bluetooth on EasyCode, but StorID really was the app we have now released to be compatible with Bluetooth and that AP1. I'll pass it off to Sasha now to go over a couple more features, comparison between EasyCode and StorID here.
Right. So as Logan mentioned previously, EasyCode showcases a more standardized experience with light branding. So it offers tenants mobile access, but it doesn't necessarily provide full white labeling like StorID does. They can essentially see facility information and the logo. But StorID is designed to be white labeled, so meaning it can become an extension of the operator's brand. When you go into SLC, you click on the customization tab underneath the StorID tab, and you can import custom logo and colors there. That will then translate over to StorID. So StorID is built to accommodate for more customization capabilities also, which we have planned for the future. So as far as unit access history goes here, EasyCode offers facility visibility, but it's not as unit specific as StorID. In EasyCode, you can see gates and door access, but there are no unit security access logs associated with it. So in this case, StorID offers a more robust access log and paints the full picture of who accessed the unit and when. So with the Pro Edge, you can see who unlocks or locks a smart latch, and you can also see the timestamp associated with that. So with all that being said, let's move on to how you can exactly transition over from EasyCode to StorID. So we spoke a lot about why StorID is so great, but you may be asking yourself how to use it if you're an EasyCode user currently. The first step here is that the EasyCode tenant will receive an email notifying them of the switch over to StorID. That should have happened April 2nd, which was yesterday. And then starting from April 2nd, yesterday, tenants see a notification window that says PTI will replace EasyCode. In the window messaging, there is a URL. Tenants click the URL and it'll redirect them to log into StorID using their existing EasyCode credentials. Sometimes, or in the event that you had auto login as a feature on an EasyCode and don't remember your password, you can reset your password on the login page by clicking the button Forgot Password. Now that we got the tenant perspective covered, let's get into the operator perspective.
Thank you, Sasha. So as you can see here, there are only a few steps that operators are suggested to take at this time. Of course, as Sasha mentioned, just as EasyCode users will start seeing a pop-up that was yesterday. Starting yesterday, operators will see a pop-up in SLC, just notifying them of the end of support and sale of EasyCode. So that'll continue to pop up until you click the button that says, got it, and don't remind me again. There is one action we would request operators to take at this time. We would suggest they take this action. You can see the steps here. If they go to operations, company info, and settings, they're able to check the ProEdge available button in order to enable StorID visually in SLC. However, their existing EasyCode users will still be displayed in that tab. So no concern there. EasyCode users will still be able to use the app, but they'll be able to transition as well with their existing credentials to Sasha's point. At that time, operators that will then have the ability to enroll any new users in StorID to prevent the transition for new users later when the information is already known, of course. Operators also have the ability to then customize the app, as we've mentioned, with a color scheme or a logo. So now we'll move to the next slide and go over a couple common use cases here. So I'll pass it off to Sasha to cover the tenants here.
Sure. So let's just do a quick little recap on the value of what StorID brings to tenants. StorID solves the pain points of traditional access control by replacing them with Bluetooth. So when a tenant approaches an access point, that detects PTI hardware using Bluetooth and automatically authenticates that user based upon their mobile credentials. When the Bluetooth is active and the user is within the range, the app sends an encrypted signal to trigger the access point, which essentially means that the device to hardware authentication process prevents unauthorized access. And then alongside Bluetooth, streamlined navigation enhances that tenant experience. When tenants open the StorID app, they don't have to guess how to get to their unit. They're shown only the gates, doors, or entry points that matter for their specific path. And lastly, StorID was built in mind to forget the code and rely on technology to do its job. So gone are the days of digging through emails for that randomized access code or looking through that hefty lease agreement. This is possible because StorID eliminates the risk of stolen or shared codes. Operators can configure the system to disable PIN-based keypad access during after hours and have only Bluetooth access through StorID. So now that we covered that, Logan, let's hear a recap of the operator's point of view.
Thank you, Sasha. As we've harped on quite a bit here, StorID offers operators the ability to create a really nice branded experience. You're able to put your company logo, change the color scheme to match that logo, and really keep your customers sticky, coming back to you. In addition, you have the ability to track access activity in real time through the event log, of course, and then the key sharing tab that is tied to StorID. You can see who your users are sharing keys with and keep track of that activity in real time. And as Sasha mentioned, StorID reduces the issues with lost or shared codes. Now that each person has their own Bluetooth credentials, even when tenants share their key, they do not have to share their access code to keep things nice and secure for your facility. Now I'll pass it back to Sasha to go over the enrollment in StorID for tenants.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. So enrollment of new tenants in StorID is a lot simpler than you think. The first step is to have the SMS from your storage facility send the tenant the enrollment link. Then the enrollment link essentially says something like, if you're an Apple user, click this link. If you're an Android user, click this link. Once you click the link, it'll direct you to the Google or Play Store, depending on your device type. Then you go back to that same text message, click the link again, and you'll be directed to the enrollment page of StorID. So when opening the app, it'll ask you for your access code, your email, and your password. The last thing to do is press submit, and you're in. I wanted to go over some housekeeping items. So some important dates to know is that yesterday, April 2nd, StorLogix Cloud reminded operators of the change to StorID, and Easy Code for tenants started to display messaging that has a window in it that reminds tenants of the change as well to StorID. And in the future, April 8th, there will be a reminder on ptisecurity.com about the removal of Easy Code. And then April 22nd marks the day we have for end of technical support and suggested end of enrollment of Easy Code users. April 30th, the Easy Code app will be removed from the app and Play stores. So it's in the operator's best interest to download StorID today to get familiar with it. And if you have further questions, we have additional support, which Logan will get into.
Thank you, Sasha. As you can see here, we have plenty of support, documentation, videos, and even posters available to download for you. And I would recommend, if you need hard information, physical information at your sites, those links at the bottom there, you can download dealer posters that you can display, at your sites to inform customers, QR codes to download the app if needed. So I'd take advantage of that for sure. And of course, we have an amazing tech support team that won ISS 2024 Best of Business Tech Support, and they are trained and ready to answer questions regarding StorID and anything that comes up, of course. The average speed of answer right now is 3 minutes, so feel free to call them if you need support. And I think we'll jump to the next slide now and go over the takeaways. Just to make sure everyone is on the same page, we're just going to highlight these things once again. Of course, Easy Code will no longer be available for new users after 4:30. It will not be in the Google Play Store. It will not be in the App Store. However, customers who have Easy Code downloaded still, it won't disappear from their phone, but we would encourage them, of course, to download StorID and log in with their existing credentials. So we encourage operators to message, this information to your tenants to get them migrating as soon as possible. Tenants can download StorID today and log in. And for those of you who don't transition, of course, as I said, Easy Code will continue to operate, but it will not be developed further. And our tech support team, will take calls, but we will not help with enrollment because that will no longer be possible at this point. So it is highly recommended to go into SLC operations, company info, settings, check that box for ProEdge available for now, enable StorID within StorLogix Cloud. So any new users you have on your site can immediately get access to StorID and not have to deal with this transition. And then for existing tenants, go ahead and download StorID and log in. There's no cost to upgrade. This is included within StorLogix Cloud. So now we'll open it up to Q&A. So Jason, take the wheel.
Yeah, thanks, Logan. Thanks, Sasha. Good information. Yeah, once again, if you have any questions, please utilize the question and answer tab at the top and ask your questions. We actually do have a few, Logan and Sasha. So the first one's probably you for Logan. How do you enable StorID within SLC? I think specifically it talks about enabling ProEdge. So if you want to spend a little bit of time talking about that operator experience inside of SLC enabling StorID.
Right, for sure. And if we're on the key takeaways tab here, right, you can see the steps there. So you'll open up StorLogix Cloud, open up that menu, go to Operations, Company Info, Settings, and you'll see a checkbox for ProEdge available. You'll just click Edit at the top right corner, check ProEdge available, click Submit, And from that point on, your Easy Code tab will be replaced with the StorID tab. But just as a reminder, all previous Easy Code users will still exist in that table, and they will still have access. And of course, when they're ready, they can download StorID and log in with those existing credentials.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, another question came in. This is specific around how does Bluetooth work, or how does Bluetooth work within StorID or within our products?
Right. Yeah, I can take that one, Jason. So our Bluetooth functionality is enabled both by StorID and our AP1 keypad. So our AP1 keypads have a Bluetooth radio. You'll see there's a little clear section at the top where you can actually see the radio behind there. And so that communication is, initiated, of course, by the client, which would be the StorID user, and that connection is made. A secure encrypted Bluetooth signal is sent with the access credentials, and from that point on, the user is able to get on site.
Thank you. Another one here is, I think this is more for Sasha. How do you customize StorID?
Right. So in StorID, once you go through the process of pressing ProEdge available by doing the process that Logan said, you'll then see a StorID tab. So then after the StorID tab, there will be a sub-tab called customization. You simply click that, upload your logo, change your hex colors of whatever you want, and then press save. And then that will then translate over to StorID.
Thank you. And a final question here, probably more for Sasha. Can you talk about what does the end of support mean?
Right. Okay. So end of support will stop on April 22nd, which we've highlighted, but that essentially means that we will no longer be providing updates, security patches, or bug fixes within the app. But feel free to call or text support if you have questions on timeline or how to better transition through the process. But yeah, we're not providing any more engineering security patches or bug fixes from April 22nd.
Got it. Thank you. Last call for any last questions. While you're doing that, just as a reminder, today's webinar is being recorded. So as an attendee, you should get a recording link. If not, our marketing team will post today's recording on our PTI YouTube page, so you can look at it at a later date. I don't see any further questions. So with that, if you have any questions, please reach out to any one of your PTI team members. They are aware and they can help. But in the meantime, thanks for joining today's call, and y'all have a great day. Thank you.